State of California, Ms. Steele.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank the witnesses for being here today and for all the work you have done to shine a spotlight on these important issues. Today's hearing is about fraud, and this lost funds actually came from hardworking taxpayers, and it should not happen again. Last Congress, I led an effort to recover funds, prevent fraud, and support the victims of unemployment fraud identity theft. Along with Speaker McCarthy, I introduced the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Fraud Protection Act. My bill would create an incentive structure to encourage states to recover fraudulent unemployment payments, require states to revamp and improve fraud prevention efforts in the unemployment program, and include necessary protection for victims, those innocent taxpayers will receive 1099-K without receiving these employment payments of unemployment benefits fraud. My constituents, Californians, and Americans who actually need unemployment assistance should be the ones who receive it, not criminals. California was one of the biggest targets for this fraud. The State of California Legislative Analysis Office reported that $18.7 billion, 94% of unemployment insurance benefit fraud may have occurred in the federally funded unemployment program. An estimated $20 billion in potentially fraudulent unemployment payments are still under investigation. Mr. Chairman, I would like to submit for the record for a report by California State Auditor issued in January 2021.
Without objection.
This report found significant weaknesses in the Employment Development Department's approach to fraud prevention, which led to billions of dollars in improper benefit payments. According to the report, EDD paid $1 billion of $11 billion in part due to a problematic decision to streamline its process by removing a safeguard against paying individuals with unconfirmed identities. EDD, which was led by current Department of Labor Deputy Secretary Julie Su, issued the payments to those claimants with unconfirmed identities before discovering it, had removed the safeguards for more than a 4-month period. And believe it or not, she was just named as an acting secretary of Department of Labor, somebody who messed up in California EDD programs. California made it easy for fraudsters access benefits, and that had devastating consequences for my constituents. We should all be on the side of good governance and protection of taxpayer money, and the billions in fraud paid out over the last 2 years is an embarrassment. Mr. Turner, last October, your agency issued a report finding that nearly half of the pandemic unemployment benefits may have been improperly paid, with $1 in $5 going to fraudsters. California was one of the 4 states you looked at. One of the things your report looked at was timeliness of the payments. I shared concerns voiced by my friends on the other side of the aisle about ensuring equity and access to benefits. That doesn't mean we should prioritize speed over safeguards just to get money out the door quickly. California's stories show how unfair and unjust the consequences can be for taxpayers and workers. Mr. Turner, can you talk about best practices and what needs to be done to modernize systems to ensure states have the proper verification up front?
Yes, and thanks for the question. I think one of the things that we don't do enough and utilize enough is data analytics. Data analytics has helped us, it's been a game changer and a force multiplier, and it was one of the things that allowed us to identify the $45.6 billion in fraud from those 4 high-risk areas that I mentioned earlier. So that's one thing. I think also maybe we need to look at probably a central database. One of the things that helped this fraud get perpetrated was the fact that every state, all 53 states or entities, operate different systems. So therefore, what's not enough cross-checking to basically catch some of that fraud early on.
So how are you going to make it easy between California, especially California is the highest amount, that fraudulent amount that, we found out. So how are you going to work with the state and federal government?
Well, just giving guidance from our reports as far as what needs to be done to be improved. I think that's a big start, and just emphasizing working together and coming up with maybe one system. Because right now, the biggest challenge for the OIG is data access. And so, and that's what I believe slowed us down in identifying some of this fraud earlier.
Thank you very much. I yield back.
Thank you, Representative. I'd like to recognize